is if we could visit slash notes slash some particular node ID and have it go straight to that node. Highlight it over here, load it up in the form. Sound pretty cool? Sound exciting? We can do that. You've dealt with routes that have params in them, right? So let's go down to main. Oops. And what needs to change? Well, we're going to need that ID. If we want that to affect what gets loaded in the form, we're going to need note form to know about that ID, right? So we can wrap a switch around here. And give it a version with an ID and without. All right, so we'll leave note form there for a second, but we're getting ready to move it. So we need to import, once again, switch and route. Import route, comma, switch from React router DOM. Throw the old switcheroo in here. Well, no, it actually is. Yeah. And throw a route in there. So first, we'll match if the ID is there. So route path equal slash notes slash, how do we indicate that we want to capture this next part as a parameter? Use a colon. You remember that from yesterday? It's like colon ID. And then that will be available as a prop through our props. And then what do we need to do? We need to render note form here, right? But we need to pass these props along. So we're going to have to use render. So render equals some arrow function. I didn't need curly braces. Just use parentheses. And we want to put in something like this. I'm only putting this on multiple lines for readability. Wouldn't have to be. So that's going to render it the way it's being rendered now. That's all well and good. So right now, if I were to do this, and I visit just slash notes, the form isn't there at all. If I visit slash notes slash something, then the form is there. But guess what? That ID isn't going to be available to me. Why not? What's another difference between render and component when you're doing a route? Anybody remember this, or did anybody learn this in the first place? When you say component equals some component, it passes along some props automatically, right? Some props related to the router, related to your history, related to your parameters, stuff like that. If you use render, it doesn't. But you can still do it if you want to. It will pass those props as an argument to the render function. So we could capture those, nav props, and then make sure that we include them in our JSX here. Again, break them out using our spread syntax so that those go through as individual props. So then we also need to match the route where the ID isn't present, where there is no slash something. So path equals just slash notes. We actually want to render the same thing The only difference is these props that we pass in aren't going to include the ID param because it's not there. But there's no difference in what component we're rendering based on whether the ID is there or not. We're still going to render the form, right? It's just going to be either with a blank note or with a specific note. So if that works, now we should no longer get a blank. We should no longer get the absence of the form if we don't have an ID in the URL. So right now we have notes slash something, so we see the form. And now if we just do slash notes, we still see the form. Great. So what's the difference between the two? Let's look at our React DevTools. Your DevTools are your friend. Let's search for our form component. Note form, there it is. And it shows us all our props. Do you remember how we would get to a parameter out of the URL? How did we do that yesterday? When we were like getting the GitHub user's ID. Yeah. Match.params. So props, match, params. And it's empty, right? I went to just slash notes. If I go to slash notes, legality, let's let that space out of there. Then if I look in my React DevTools and go to notes form, look at match params, I have ID set to whatever I typed there. Get it? That's the difference between those two routes. One sets this ID param to something, the other does not. And what we're saying is we want to use that ID parameter to grab a specific note. So we're going to totally change the way we determine which note goes in here, or how we change it, rather. Exciting? So add a route that includes a note ID param.